we've decided to work on a little project together, haven't we, Carmel?
We have.
And what we are going to be doing is we are going to be watching a television series together. So shall we talk a little bit about what has made us want to do this?
Sure.
So I've never been good with taking people's recommendations for TV shows, films, anything. Until I watched Breaking Bad, and people have been talking about that for years, and then I'd finally watched it, and I think it was the greatest TV show that I have ever seen in my entire life.
That's pretty cool.
And since then, I've been more open to suggestion from other people. And then you suggested something. So what is it that you have suggested to me that we're going to be giving a go?
We're going to be watching Charmed.
Charmed. Barely remember. I remember it used to be on Channel 5 growing up.
Yes, it did too.
And I remember catching glimpses of it. It seemed very intriguing. I couldn't tell you what happens in any particular episode off the top of my head. But the idea of the show is something that interests me. So I remember Charmed being about witchcraft. I completely forgot that there was any kind of demons. For some reason, I always thought demons were in Buffy, which they kind of are. But for some reason, I had it in my head Charmed was all about 3 women just going through sort of everyday things that happen, but with witchcraft.
I don't know.
What we're going to do is sit down and watch one episode per podcast. Carmel is familiar with the characters. She's familiar with their motivations. She's familiar with how things that happen in episode 1 might reflect on certain things that happen or come back in, episode 10 of season 5 or something like that. I don't have a clue. So I'm a fresh set of eyes. I remember the 3 witches from the first season. I remember that somewhere along the line, one of them changes. I couldn't tell you why. I couldn't tell you if they come back.
Can you actually remember the other person changing or how?
No. So this is the thing. Back when Channel 5 used to play them, I don't think they used to play them in a particular order.
Yeah, they did.
They did?
Yeah.
Oh, that shows you how infrequently I watched them then, because
it was on every, when I say Saturday night, because I know that when it first came out, me, my mum and my sister used to sit down and watch it.
Right. Because I remember Charmed was a kind of series that doesn't, from what I can remember, it didn't follow on from the previous episode. It's something that you could pick. No.
No, there's background stories.
Then I have a lot to catch up on.
There's background stories, and you do need to watch it in order.
Right. I think that's probably the problem that I have, because time feels like it goes a lot slower when you're a kid. Yeah. So I might have watched the show one random weekend in February and then picked it up again in April, May time. To me, it feels like it's one after the other, but it's still quite a long period of time between those. So I remember being quite thrown off by what had happened in an episode I just watched compared to the one I watched before.
Yeah.
And that's probably
because you hadn't watched them.
Yeah.
US.
I thought that was because Channel 5 just picked, random episodes and played them, which probably explains why I was so confused watching it growing up. But what we're going to do is watch them in chronological order. I'm going to be a fresh set of eyes, and we're going to talk about what happens in the episode, hopefully get to know the characters a bit better, get to know the sort of overarching storyline. Carmel will already be familiar with it, but I'll be kind of learning about it for the first time. And hopefully we'll sort of see why it's much better received than the reboot.
Thank you.
Which I haven't watched personally, but I think it's terrible.
I watched maybe 2 episodes and gave up. I couldn't. It was too political for me. Charmed to me is about fun and sassy, whereas the reboot was neither.
Let's start with episode 1.
Woo!
Start then. So we've watched episode 1.
So episode 1 is Something Wicca This Way Comes. And we start off with a witch lighting candles with her fingers. and there's a creepy person in a raincoat in the rain on the fire escape. You hear a cat meowing. The woman carries on lighting, starts to chant, and...
So this woman's clearly a witch.
Yeah.
So straight away you're introduced to the element of magic.
Someone creeps up behind her. She's scared and she's like, "Oh, it's you. What are you doing here?"
So it's someone she knows.
And then she gets stabbed.
So straight away, that's a bit of a cold open into something that's already happening. First off, I was thrown off by it being like a boxed ratio. So you know the box that is shot in 8:9. Yeah, 8:9 aspect ratio. I'm so used when I'm watching even stuff from the 80s and 90s. When we watch it on modern TVs, usually they box it out and you end up losing bits from the top and bottom. It was nice because we watched it on DVD. It was nice to kind of see it in its original aspect ratio. That was quite cool. The opening also reminds me a little bit of Harry Potter. I know that's weird, because she was lighting the candles with her fingers. It kind of reminded me of Dumbledore taking the lights out. Also, I thought straight away I knew what the storyline was going to be. I thought that this witch that was lighting the candles, this is another reason I thought it would be kind of like Harry Potter. I thought it was going to turn out she was the witch's mum who was killed. And I thought, because you don't see this mysterious figure that kills her, I thought the overarching story for maybe season 1 or something was going to be 3 orphans growing up and finding out their mum was a witch and that she'd been killed for being a witch and hunting down the murderer.
You can't remember this can't remember Charmed at all, can you?
No, I can't remember any. Like I say, when I watched it, I thought it was different stories episode to episode. And I know you've said there's overarching storylines to tie them all together. But that kind of made me, I was kind of like, oh, okay, so it reminds me a lot of Harry Potter. And is this character going to remain mysterious throughout the, half of season 1, and then they're going to start kind of finding out who it is and stuff?
He who must not.
Yeah.
Let's not be named.
But it turns out you do get a resolution to who that is by the end of the episode, and I was completely wrong. What happens next then?
Okay. You then see a woman go up the stairs into a house, and this is where you first meet Piper and Prue. Prue's fixing the chandelier. She's moaning at Piper for not being there and that she's got work. Piper's trying to explain that she was in Chinatown trying to get some bits for a job interview, and that asked if a package is coming. She says, yeah, there's Jeremy has sent you something, and there's a bottle of port waiting for Piper. They then move on to have a conversation about Phoebe, their third sister. And Prue makes a comment about Phoebe's lack of vision and future planning. So there is obviously a little bit of tension with Prue and Phoebe.
She's kind of the castaway, isn't she?
Black sheep of the family.
Yeah, out of the 3 of them.
Yeah. And then it moves on to a new scene.
Is Phoebe the youngest?
Phoebe's the youngest.
Right.
So you got Prue, who's the oldest. Piper, who's the middle one, which you will see in a future scene, how she's the middle one. And then you've got Phoebe, who's the youngest, the carefree one. So the next scene, you've got a man walking through to a load of people, and another gentleman greets him and says, Detective Trudeau. And they have a bit of discussion, and Detective Trudeau tells his partner that he's been visiting court shops and he believes that witches are being murdered. His partner is very, very skeptical about this.
As you would be.
Yeah, he's not very open to this idea. So, have you got anything on that one?
Just that it's an absolute banger of a theme song. You hear the theme song at that point. There's 2 theme songs that I remember. Considering I didn't watch Charmed very much or know about the storyline and stuff. There's Angel's theme song, and the Charmed theme song that I remember, and they are both great.
That's funny because like Angel, we've been watching together because I listened to Elena and Ash's rewatcher, and I watch Buffy along with them every week. And then I decided to throw Angel in the mix because you brought me Angel for Christmas once, and I've still not watched it all the way. And I am slightly behind on Angel. And we only watched a couple of episodes when you first brought me that box set, and you preferred Angel to Buffy straight away. And I was like, nah, it's all about Buffy.
We get some flashes of that symbol. I call it the charm symbol, but I know it does have a actual.
Yeah, you jumping in too quickly there.
Am I?
Yeah.
I thought, when do we see that then?
We've got a few more.
It's on the cat, isn't it? In the cat.
We've got a few more bits to go through before the symbol comes into it.
Oh, okay.
The scene then cuts to Prue and Piper arguing about Phoebe coming back from New York City because Piper's like, oh yeah, I've been thinking we need a roommate and someone to help around the house, and says, what about Phoebe? And Prue's like, well, she's in New York City. And she's like, well, not anymore. And they start arguing about it. And then Phoebe comes through the door, and here comes tension. Piper goes to pay for the taxi. Phoebe and Prue are talking, and Phoebe's like, right, let's cut the chit chat. Let's get to the real problem. And then she says, I didn't touch Roger. And Prue was like, whoa.
So we don't know who Roger is at this point.
Not at this point, no.
But we're kind of getting, because it is unusual for sisters to fall out.
You don't have sisters.
I don't, but I don't have an ideal family, but I know that on TV, film and everything, families are things that, and they're the thing that comes first. So it takes a lot for two siblings to just stop talking to each other.
In a normal family.
Yeah.
No, it's not kind of our families in. So, but I love what Phoebe says in that, because she says, I know that's what the Armani wearing, Chardonnay slugging trust funder told you. And that did make me giggle. And then Piper comes back in and she's trying to bring peace. And she's like, who's up for something to eat? And Prue's like, I'm not hungry. And Phoebe's like, I ate on the bus. And then they both walk off. And then Piper's like, we'll try the group hug later then.
There's a part where Piper brings Phoebe some food.
This is the next scene.
Yeah.
And so Piper brings food to Phoebe, and she points out that the reporter Jeremy is her boyfriend. And they then move on to talking about Prue and how Prue sacrificed a childhood to help raise them. And then Prue comes in with a blanket. So she does care. There's something there that makes you think, okay, so she does care. But the sisters that don't get on.
Yeah. You'd kind of understand, though, if you've helped raise someone. I know we don't know all the facts yet, but if it's almost like she's tried to get with her sister's boyfriend, or that's what Prue thinks has happened, you can kind of see how you'd be sort of, how dare you, I've done all these things for you.
Yeah.
So we don't know everything yet.
So we'll find out what happens on there in later scenes. So we then move back to the crime scene, and they're putting a blanket over the deceased witch. And Trudeau stops and says, and sees a symbol tattooed to her, and it's of a circle with three joining shapes. Nobody explains what the symbol is, but Andy does say this symbol is on all of the victims. And then he walks away and then sees this cat. And he gets told, stay away from the cat, because the cat's been scratching the hell out of everybody. But he seems to like Andy, and Andy manages to give the cat fusses and then sees on the cat's collar that the same symbol's there.
I've just Googled what that symbol is.
It's triquetra.
What it's called. Yeah, I knew you'd already know, but I've viewed it. It's the triquetra. From the Latin adjective triquetrus, is a triangular figure composed of three interlaced arcs or three overlapping Vesicae piscis lens shapes. It is used as an ornamental design in architecture. And I was going to say, I feel like I've seen it in, buildings on the little carvings out and stuff. And in medieval manuscript illumination, its depiction is interlaced. It is common in insular ornaments from the 7th century. In this interpretation, the triquetra represents the topologically simplest possible knot.
It's a Celtic knot. But yeah, I've got the same symbol tattooed on the back of my neck.
I've just had a look as well. There's a Wikipedia article about it where it talks about where that symbol appears, and it does mention charmed. It's also on Michonne's katana in The Walking Dead, which I think you pointed out before when we've watched The Walking Dead. Yeah.
Uh-huh. It's like it's the charm symbol, because that to me is the charm symbol. The triquetra will come into this quite a lot. I did forget to mention in the scene that Piper and Prue, when you first introduced, they did have a Luigi board, and she read off
Luigi. Everyone says Luigi. It's
a Ouija board. A Ouija board.
Yeah.
And Piper says the inscription on the back, which says, "To my 3 beautiful daughters, may this give you the light to find the shadows. The power of 3 will set you free. Love, Mum."
And that's a cool Ouija board, by the way.
It's pretty funky, isn't it?
It is. It's not like in a lot of films and TV when they playing with a Ouija board, it's usually like a bit of cardboard that's folded and it's just square. This one looks like it's made of like wood, polished wood, and it's like cut in a funky pattern. It looks really cool. Obviously, it's made of wood because it's been inscribed with something.
Polished and, yeah.
It looks really cool. It's the kind of thing that I would have, because it's quite a large one as well. It's the kind of thing I wouldn't mind having as a coffee table if it wasn't for the fact that it could probably summon demons and stuff.
Yeah, I won't trust our 5-year-old from.
No.
He's very hyper and will probably summon the demons. So we go, the reason why I brought that up is because the next scene, Piper and Phoebe are playing with the Ouija board. And
it's like it's Jenga. Like you think, Friday night, nothing to do, get a couple of drinks, whip out the Ouija board.
Well, there's not many people that believe in it. And from what you can tell from how they were brought up is they used to play with it.
Yeah.
Because
I feel like once you've played with the Ouija board once, though, if nothing happens, I feel like you're not likely to pick it up again.
Well, I think the thing is, if
something does happen, you probably won't pick it up again either. I should be freaked out.
Well, people think that the other person is pushing it. So unless you see it moving without anyone touching it, you don't know if it's real or if it's fake.
Yeah.
Have you ever played?
No, I haven't.
I have. Not a proper one. Played with paper, with drunk
people used to do that, used to make paper Ouija boards and stuff.
And now it's just like, yeah, okay, I'm not playing anymore. Because they was all drunk, so they was obviously pushing it. Nothing happened.
I've had family that have played with Ouija boards, but if the people they've played with are the kind of people that would push it, and play pranks on you and stuff. So it's one of those things where I don't particularly believe in it, but I also don't want to test it myself, just in case.
Piper tells Phoebe to ask the question if Prue is going to have sex with someone other than herself this year. And
that's great. I missed that bit.
Phoebe says, "That's gross." And then says, "Please say yes." So that was gross, but funny. Piper's out the room to get something. Phoebe's holding it, and it then goes to the letter A.
So it moves by itself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
She calls Piper in, and by the time Piper gets there, it's moved to T. And then Prue comes in, like, "What have you done now?" And they're like, "It moved. It said AT." And then Prue was skeptical and said, "Did you push it? You always pushed it." And then it moves again to T when they turn the back, and she shouts again, and then it starts moving again, and Phoebe lets go, and it carries on moving. And this is where Piper sees it.
Yeah.
And it goes to I, and then before Prue comes in, it goes to C. That's what it spells out at it.
Yeah.
So this freaks Piper out because there's a massive storm, and it sends the electrics out just as this happens. And Piper is pretty freaked. So Prue's trying to be logic with her, and she's like, "No, I'm going to sit in a cab and wait outside Jeremy's house." She's like, "That's going to be expensive." And she's like, come to the attic with me. Let's sort the electrics out. So Piper and Prue are trying to sort that out. And Phoebe's like, I'm going to the attic.
From what I gathered, were they talking about turning the electric back on that was in the base?
They was going to see if fuses flipped.
Yeah.
Turn
So
everything back on.
we should probably mention at this point, they've inherited this house, haven't they?
Yeah, so they've inherited the house from their grams, which to us is grandma.
Yeah.
Or Nana. They've inherited the house where she passed away 6 months ago. So it's an old house. You get to learn more about the house as the seasons go on, as the episodes go on, as the seasons go on. The manor is a massive part of the Hallowell sisters. The chandelier that Prue was trying to fix, she can't figure out how to fix it. It just stops working. And it has done since they inherited the house. So there's a lot, family-wise, there's a lot about the past and everything.
The attic,
Will come out.
the attic, it's Phoebe that decides to go upstairs to the attic, into it, and it's locked.
So she goes upstairs. The next scene is she goes upstairs to the attic. She tries the door. It's locked. She turns back, and then it magically opens.
That's why I brought up that they've just inherited the house, because
they've not been able to get the attic door open. So Phoebe says she's going up to the attic, and Prue says it's locked. There's no point. And she says, well, this is our house. I'm not waiting for a handyman to come and unlock the attic door. I'm going to do it myself. She goes up, the door magically unlocks, and then there's this light shining on a chest, like a spotlight shining on a chest. So she goes up to the chest and she opens the chest and pulls out a book and then blows on it, and it's the same symbol as
the Triquetra,
the woman tattoo and the cat.
The cat collar.
Yeah.
Yeah. What's the book called?
You'll find that out in a minute. Start skipping ahead. So Phoebe then reads an incantation which says, "Hear now the words of the witches, the secrets we hid in the night. The oldest of gods are invoked here. The great work of magic is sought. In this time and in this hour, I call upon the ancient power. Bring your powers to we sisters three. We want the power. Give us the power." And then as she said that, the chandelier starts shaking and there's a glow on the chandelier. And then the camera focuses in on a photo, and the three sisters on the photo grow close together by magic. Did you notice that?
I did. I didn't understand what it was, but I guess it symbolizes them getting closer as a result of this thing that Phoebe's just done.
So they have to work together as sisters for the power of three to work. The others run to the attic, and Phoebe explains to Piper and Prue that she's found the Book of Shadows, and that she's read out loud, and she thinks that they're witches and that they're having powers. And Piper's like, you gave me a power. And Prue was like, no, she's given us all powers. But they brush it off. They don't believe it's true. But while this is happening, it pans to outside where a figure is stood in the rain.
Is it the same figure?
Same figure that killed the witch at the beginning is stood in the rain watching the manor.
Do they talk about, was it their mum had powers?
No.
Or was it a descendant had powers? It's written in the Book of Shadows what powers they had.
So, in the next scene, it goes to the next day. Phoebe's sat on the steps with a cup of tea, and Pad comes out, and she's like, "You're up early." Phoebe said, "Oh, I didn't sleep," and she was like, "I was reading." And Prue was like, Piper was like, out loud. And Phoebe was like, no, in my head. But she said that the Book of Shadows explains that the ancestor was a witch named Melinda Warren. You will find out a lot about Melinda Warren as the episodes go on and as the seasons go on. But Melinda Warren, who had the power to move things with her mind, freeze time, and see the future. And Piper said, we've also got a cousin who's a drunk, an aunt who's a manic, and a father who's invisible. So again, Phoebe's brushed off, and Phoebe shouting, we're known as the protector of the innocents, we're the charmed ones. And Piper again just brushes her off and gets in the car and goes.
So when they mentioned powers, we spoke about this after we watched it. I remembered that they get powers other than just spells, and I wanted to see how good my memory was, and it turns out I was completely wrong. I remembered that Phoebe could stop time, which was wrong.
Yep.
Piper could make things explode or fly around.
Okay.
Which was kind of, you told me I was kind of right with that, but not the flying around part. And for some reason, I thought that Prue could read minds, but she had to touch the person to be able to see what they're thinking.
Okay. No.
So we'll find out more about what powers they got later.
Yeah.
But that's what I thought, but it's completely wrong.
So the next part of the episode starts flitting between the sisters. So the first sister you see is Prue's at work with Roger, and Roger's explaining about
She works at a museum, isn't she?
Yeah, so she works at a museum, and her job is to find and research artifacts for the
Exhibitions. Yeah.
I can't talk. Let me just point out I am naturally bland. Roger's telling Prue that he knows how much work she's put into it, but that it's basically going to be took away from her. And this frustrates Prue because she's done all the hard work.
He's going to swoop in and take the credit.
Yeah. So she basically says, she brings up the fact, is this before or after they stopped sleeping together, or after she returned the engagement ring? So this is when you find out this is the Roger that Phoebe was talking about. And he says, well, I didn't realise that the two was mutually exclusive, even though I preferred one more than the other. He's very slimy. I agree with Phoebe's little dig, but I'd have been harsher. Prue gets frustrated, and she crinkles her eyes and walks away. As she walks away, the pen starts leaking in his pocket where she crinkled her eyes at. And then he opens the pen lid and it squirts in his face.
So we're starting to get hints of the kind of powers.
Yeah. And you'll notice as well, when they use their power, there's a twinkling noise.
I didn't notice that.
There's a twinkling noise every time they use the power. So the next scene is you go on to Piper cooking.
She's a chef, isn't she?
So Piper is a chef. She's at a job interview. So she's cooking roast pork with gratin and Florence, and penny with port gablet sauce.
Sounds delicious.
It does sound quite nice. Not gonna lie. So the guy swoops in, this French guy swoops in, and he's like, it's just a recipe from a girls' magazine, pish posh, whatever. And she's trying to tell him she hasn't added the port yet, but he ignores her. So she puts her hand up in frustration and he freezes. So she then takes this opportunity to add the port to the pork. And it works. He actually thinks it's amazing. Once he's thawed out, he thinks it's amazing. And then it goes back to the museum. So you see Roger in his office saying on the phone that there obviously, who's done the hard work and the graft, and they've been there from the start. And he goes to say his own name but says Prue in surprise and says, I'm going to have to call you back. Prue says, I quit. And
Roger, you don't understand if someone's stealing all the hard work you've done.
So Roger then threatens her, saying that he'll blacklist her from all the museums. She'll never find a job. And she's like, don't threaten me. And they have a little argument. And Roger says, you're going to regret this. And she says, well, I don't think so. This is the best thing I've done other than get rid of you. Dump him. And then she tells him to enjoy all of the research and the work that she's left him, and that he now needs to sort through everything himself. So obviously he's fuming. But he then accuses her of stealing office supplies. So she does that gesture with her hands where you want to wring someone's neck, and then he begins to choke on his tie.
So she doesn't see that happen.
No, she's walking away again.
Yeah.
So she doesn't see any of this. She's walking away.
So Prue still has a reason to be kind of skeptical at them all being witches because she hasn't actually seen anything happen yet.
No.
That Piper has.
Yeah, so Piper, in the next scene, Piper's in a telephone box trying to get hold of Phoebe. Bloody telephone boxes. They're not used for telephone boxes in England anymore. So she can't get hold of Phoebe. Phoebe's not at home. So she leaves the telephone box and bumps into her boyfriend, Jeremy, and he congratulates her. And she's like, how did you know that I got the job? And he says, well, you made your specialty. Anyone that's tasted that knows how amazing you are. And then the scene cuts to Phoebe riding a bike. Phoebe's riding a bike down the street and she has a vision, and her visions are always in black and white as well. She has a vision of these two skater boys skating and then being knocked over by a car. So she then hears it and then screams, no, stop, rides a bike faster and swings a car in front of the bike. So the car stops and she gets injured instead. After she gets hit, there's then a meow and it pans out to the cat from the murder scene. Did you see that?
I did. So that cat is a recurring theme, isn't it?
Yeah.
And it reminded me a little bit of Final Destination as well. The premonition, seeing something happen and then preventing it.
Yeah.
But obviously it hasn't got the downside of death still coming for you afterwards. So.
But you meet death in Charmed.
I didn't know that. We'll probably see that later.
It's cool. So Prue, you then go to a scene in the hospital where Prue's at the desk asking to see Phoebe, and then you hear a guy say his name's Detective Andrew Trudeau, and Prue looks at him and goes, Andy. So they obviously know each other. So they're both told that the people that they see are currently busy. So Andy goes to treat Prue to a bad cup of coffee. So while they're at the coffee machine, they start catching up. Prue mentions the moving, I think it was from Portland, and Andy was like, yeah, I've moved back. And she says, oh, so you're now a detective? And he says, oh, it's Inspector. She says, Inspector sounds sexier. And he says, well, I like it now already. And says that about the father being proud, and is like, yeah, third generation. So he comes from a background of cops. Andy then asks about Roger, and Prue is like, yeah, we've been no longer together. She's like, how do you know? Was you checking up on me? And he goes, no, call it inquiring minds. And she was like, so he was checking up on me. And then Prue gets called to Phoebe. So we then go to Prue and Phoebe sat at a bar. It looks like Phoebe's got a shot of alcohol and Prue has coffee. And they're talking about witches. Prue's very skeptical. And she's like, have you not moved anything of frozen time? And Prue was like, no. And then she says, where's that cream? And then the cream comes shooting to her. And then the cream goes into the coffee, which I don't get. And the reason why I don't get that is because you didn't see it going into the coffee. It just magically went into the coffee. And that's not a power that she's got.
What are Prue's powers?
Just moving things with the mind, telekinesis.
Right, so she can't transport something from one place to another. She can just move it.
Yeah, so
I thought that was strange because I was expecting the creamer to actually pour in.
To float and then pour in, which would make sense because that's telekinesis. But for it to go from out of the cream cup to the coffee, that makes no sense to me.
No.
And they shouldn't have put that in there.
No.
And then it bubbled a bit, and it's just like, that makes no sense.
But that was the first time that Prue has seen any kind of magic.
Yeah, that's the first time that she sees her power.
Yeah, so she's performed magic without realising, but this is the first time she's actually seen something happen.
Yeah, then you then go to Prue and Phoebe walking down the street. Oh, actually, before that, Prue nicks Phoebe's shot and downs a shot.
This is after she's seen...
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I'd probably do the same.
Yeah, I think that would as well. And then you see them walking down the street. Phoebe explains to Prue about witches, that there's good witches, there's bad witches. And she explains about warlocks and that, while they didn't have powers, they was in the dark. And now that they have their powers, warlocks are now going to try and come after them.
So this is the conflict of the series. She mentions that warlocks, the whole point of a warlock is they're evil. They've got evil magic and they steal the witches, the good witches' powers. So warlocks are evil, and the whole point of them is to steal magic from the good witches.
Yeah, but you also get bad witches who try to fight the good witches as well. So you get bad witches and warlocks.
The main conflict will probably come from these evil entities wanting to steal their powers. And like you said, now that they've discovered their powers, it's like they've lit up and they're now a beacon for all these evil people. Yeah.
So it then moves to a shot of Piper and Jeremy in a taxi. And Taxi is asking the driver to take a detour. And Piper was like, well, I thought we was going to your place. And he goes, no, I want you to see this view. It's absolutely amazing. And then we move back to Prue and Phoebe, who are now in a chemist. Prue wants some aspirin because she's got a headache. Prue's like, this is aisle 3, where's the aspirin? And Phoebe says, why don't you move the headache out of your mind? And then a bottle of aspirin comes flying at her.
Have you tried not being sick?
Don't be sick, how dare you? But the bottle of aspirin comes flying at her, so it worked.
Yeah.
But then Phoebe says, your powers are linked, you're stronger when you're upset. Prue's like, no, don't be daft. And Phoebe's like, okay, so what happens when we talk about Roger? And more aspirin come flying at her. And she's like, okay, so let's see what happens when we talk about Dad.
Oh.
And she's like, well, Dad's dead. And Phoebe's like, no, Dad's very much alive. You're upset that he's alive. You're upset that I went to try and find him. He's moved from New York, but he's very much alive. And then Phoebe goes, Dad, 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 Dad. And loads of stock comes flying off the shelves.
The shelves empty themselves, don't they?
Yeah. And Phoebe turns around to Prue and is like, feel better? And Prue was like, lots.
So I'm guessing the whole, why their dad is dead to Prue will be kind of looked at later on in the series.
Yeah, you find out a bit more about the dad, but there was also the remark from Piper where Piper says, and we've got a father who's invisible.
Yeah.
So you will find out what happened to their dad.
Okay.
So we then move back to Piper and Jeremy. They're now at what looks like an abandoned warehouse.
Yeah, he said he wanted to show her something.
A view.
Yeah. And she was hesitant.
But because she trusts him, she follows him. And then they're in this lift and he mentions Phoebe. And she says, oh, I didn't realise that I said that I advised
Phoebe was
back. And he says, oh, you mentioned it. And she was like, I don't think I did. And then he pulls out a knife and she's like, stop it, you're scaring me. And he's on about how he's waited 6 months for Phoebe to come back to town and for them to gain their powers since Grams died. And his face changes into this really weird, like CGI demonic. That's really bad.
So this is the big reveal, isn't it?
Yeah, so this big reveal where you find out that Jeremy is
who that big arc was at the start killing witches.
Yeah, so because the way that you find it out is he puts his hand up and there's flames coming out of his fingertips, which is the witches from the beginning's power.
I didn't even click onto that. I didn't even, yeah, she had the, that was her power, wasn't it?
Because Piper says, you're the one that's been killing all those women. And he says, not women, witches. And flames coming out of his fingers. Like, says, I stole their powers and now I want yours.
I didn't even click on that. That was, I know that he killed her, but I didn't click onto the fact that why he did that. I thought he was just showing that he's magic. But you'd think that the fact his face has already changed would be enough of that. Okay.
So Piper freezes him. She tries to escape. He grabs their ankle. She whacks him with a plank of wood and she runs off. So he's then knocked out. So the next scene is in the manor. Phoebe presses the ants machine and there's a voicemail from Roger saying, Prue, I forgive you, come back to work. Like, basically gaslighting her, telling her it's all her fault. And Phoebe rolls her eyes, and Prue comes in, and she's got a cat in her hands.
It's the same cat, isn't it?
And it's the same cat. And they're like, how did the cat get in the house? And he was like, I must have left the window open. But they don't kick the cat out of the house. Prue just puts the cat down.
Dark. Oh, you mean places the cat on the floor?
Yeah, just let's take the cat to the vets. No. Piper then runs in and runs up to Phoebe and Prue and says, Phoebe, is there anything in the Book of Shadows that gets rid of? And she's scanning the mind. She doesn't know what this thing's called. And Phoebe goes, a warlock? And Prue's like, yes. And she's like, okay, so I think they then run to the Book of Shadows. And the next one, all three of them are in next to a bowl in the middle. And then they've got candles lit around them. And they're saying that we needed 9 candles. And they're like, well, there's only 8. And then Phoebe pulls out of a birthday candle and was like, oh, this is 9. I'm guessing Grams was low on the witch supply. So she lights the candle, puts it in this metal bowl in front. And Piper gets this like clay voodoo doll and presses a rose into it and says, your love will wither from my life and heart. Let me be Jeremy and go away forever. And it cuts to Jeremy having thorns come out of him. So he's then in pain. So he's obviously woke up, started to chase her. He's in pain because these thorns are coming out. But then Phoebe goes to pick up the pot and she gets a black and white flash of Jeremy with thorns. And she's like, says Jeremy's alive. And it was like, how do you know? It's like, I touched the pot. And she was like, you touched the pot and Jeremy's alive. And she's like, yeah. She's like, how does that work? I don't know, but Jeremy's alive. We've got to go. And so they run downstairs, open the front door, and there's Jeremy.
Yeah.
So they run back up to the attic and start piling
Put things inside the door.
in front. And he says, you think a chair will stop me? You think a dresser will stop me?
And they move out the way. He somehow shifts them out the way.
Yeah, so he moves them with his mind, which will probably be powers he's stolen from the witches.
Yeah.
He says, haven't you witches figured it out? Nothing will stop me. And then he bursts into the room. And as he bursts into the room, the girls are stood holding hands. And they're saying the power of 3 will set us free. And they keep repeating, the power of 3 will set us free. The power of 3 will set us free, while he's talking in the background.
Set us free. The power of 3 will set us free. The power of 3 will set us free. The power of 3 will set us free.
I am one of millions. In places you can't even imagine and forms you would never believe. We are hell on this earth. You will never be safe. And you will never be free.
And then he explains. You then go on to the next day. Prue goes outside to get the paper. And Andy comes, parks up. And she's like, asking what he's doing there. And he's like, I want to treat you to a good cup of coffee. I wants to ask her out. And she goes to say yes. But then she's like, oh, my life's a bit complicated at the minute. And then the girls come out and they're like, what was Andy doing here? She's like, well, he was asking me out. Do witches even date? Piper says not only do they date, but they usually get the best guys. And then they have a little bit of banter. Prue says, we just need to be careful and wise and stick together. And Piper's like, this will be interesting. And then as they go inside, Andy stares at the cat, because the cat's now on their steps. And he stops and looks at the cat because he recognises the cat from the medicine. And that is where we end it.
And Prue closes the door using her power.
Yeah.
So I like those last 2 scenes because the warlock's demon guy basically opens the door to what the conflict is going to be through the whole series. He explains that even though he's about to die, there's millions of these warlocks, which means, he's set for the next few seasons. You can have a different villain every episode or every season. It also shows how the witches' powers can be used to fight these guys as well. And I think it's really cool that you go from them not even knowing that they're witches to them then getting powers to then accidentally doing things like moving the coffee creamer or, accidentally freezing your boss and that kind of thing, to putting those powers to use
in a witch way, which they're meant to be for, to fight good and protect innocent.
Yeah. So by the end of the first episode, they're a lot more comfortable with what they are now. They know kind of what they're going to be dealing with.
I don't think they're comfortable, but they're more open.
Yeah.
I don't think they're anywhere near comfortable yet, but they're more open to the fact they have powers.
In some ways, though, it kind of makes you think if Phoebe had never come back and found that book, they'd be safe.
Well, I don't know if they'd actually still be safe because people know who they are. They just don't know who they are.
Well, all I said, he was waiting for months.
Yeah, so they'll be out in the background, but you can't take what they haven't got yet. So they needed Phoebe to come back for the powers to actually ignite and say that incantation. But you find out in later episodes why they haven't got powers. If you look back at the episode, have you got a favourite quote?
Favorite quote? I can't actually remember. What have you got on?
My favourite is, I didn't mention this when we was talking about it, but after the chemist, during the scene at the chemist, after Prue flew everything off the shelves, Phoebe said to Prue, "Our powers will grow," and Prue went, "To what?" And that just makes me giggle.
My favourite part isn't so much a quote. It's the part where Prue goes back to her boss's office. He doesn't notice that she's there straight away, and he's on the phone saying word for word
that it's his
project. He's put all this together. Word for word saying what Prue said to him previously. And he spins around, sees Prue. That's the part where he's about to
say he did it, but then it says Prue's name and it says, "I've got to go."
Yeah, and we always like it when people get caught out in their lies and their mistakes.
And Prue realizes how much of a snake he is.
Yeah.
Did you enjoy the first episode?
I did enjoy the first episode, and it does. They didn't end it on a cliffhanger or anything, which I think it's way too early on in the series to be using cliffhangers.
Cliffhangers tend to be for the finale anyway.
They can be, but it's to get you to pick up the next episode, and I think they've laid the groundwork very well. I want to see more. I want to see what kind of demons or warlocks they deal with. I want to see what their powers turn into.
See if Phoebe and Prue finally get over their hatred, each other, the contentment.
I kind of want to see, I forgot his name, is it Andy at the end?
Andy Shudo, yeah.
I kind of want to see, he's noticed the cat. Is that going to lead into him thinking...
It's not the secret.
Yeah, or are they involved somehow? Why have they got this cat? How are the three sisters linked to this murdered woman? Yeah, to this murdered witch.
Because he's open to it, because he's the one that's visiting the cult shops.
Yeah. And they've laid a lot of sort of, things that could happen in the future. Like they talk a lot about ancestors that were very powerful witches.
They've laid really good groundwork to build a series on.
Yeah.
Did you know, fun fact, that Phoebe, so the character, we haven't even mentioned who the actresses are. So you've got Shannon Doherty. Sharon Doherty, rest in peace. She died last year of breast cancer. She fought it for a lot of years. I think it was 2016 she got diagnosed, and she passed away in 2024, is Prue. And then you got Holly Marie Combs, is Piper. Alyssa Milano. Alyssa Milano, who plays Phoebe. But fun fact, Alyssa Milano was actually recasted. She was not originally in it. They shooted a pilot with another person. And I have watched it, and I would not have carried on watching it. The chemistry of the sisters is not there.
And that's not unusual for a pilot. Quite often a pilot episode, they'll change actors or they'll change some of the storyline slightly. And that's because they will test those episodes with a test audience and gauge their response. Do they like certain people? Do they dislike certain people? I briefly looked at the pilot on YouTube, and it is pretty much the same story, just with a different character.
Actress, yeah.
Quite often they'll just use placeholder actors as well if they're still negotiating contracts and stuff with who the person they actually want to be the permanent actress?
So I know that Shannon and Holly were friends before Charmed, which is why they were grouped together first. I think the producer worked with Shannon on Beverly Hills 90210 and wanted her to be Prue, and she suggested Holly. I might be wrong. This is what I know from years ago when I first got into Charmed, because I did mention that I watched it when I was younger, but so it came out when I was about 11, and that's when I used to watch it with my mum and my sister. But then we stopped watching it because our family's not the best. But we stopped watching it, and I didn't get back into it until after I had my oldest, and then I started buying it weekly on DVD till I got all 8 seasons, and then started to get really into it again. And as you know yourself, once you start getting into something, things pop up on Facebook, your phone listens to you, and you start finding out fun facts about things. And that was one of them, that Shannon and Holly was close friends before the season before Charm started.
So, I mean, this was the first time I've ever seen the first episode. Because, like I said, any other time I've caught it on Channel 5, and that could be episode 4 of season 3, and you kind of watch that, they won't refer to things that have happened in previous seasons very much either. So I had no idea how they found this book. I had no idea they inherited the house that they're in. I knew that there was a different villain every episode, or sometimes there's a villain that carries over for more than one episode, but I never understood why they were going after the witches. So this is the first time I've learned that the whole reason they're doing it is to steal their powers. I remember Leo as well. Quite interested to see how Leo comes into it.
You don't have to wait long. I think he might be in the next episode. I'm not 100% sure though.
Yeah. So I remember Leo being able to disappear and go somewhere. I don't know quite why he could do that.
You'll find that out, but you'll have to wait.
Yeah. So I'm interested to see kind of how all that comes into play. But yeah, really, really good first episode. And I'm hooked for the second.
Cool. Well, thanks for listening, and take care.
We'll be back with the next one, and that's it.